And hello there, and welcome to yet another edition of Ask the AD. I'm Dave Horger. This is Greg Christopher, the athletic director on the BGSU campus. Lots to talk about again today. Let's start with the NCAA women's basketball tournament. And it appeared that things went very well. We would think the NCAA would be duly impressed.
I think so, Dave. By all accounts, a home run.
Okay.
I was on the road for most of the time, but I was here for Sunday, and what a special day that was.
Yeah.
To see the stands full and the excitement that was in the building with the teams there, and hats off to the staff. People like Jason here, and Leslie and other senior staff members. Really, a total of about probably 200 volunteers total, and a core group of maybe 20, 25. A lot of work. As I've walked the hallways today and gone around to see people, there's a lot of tired puppies in the department right now, but very proud. A lot of time and energy went into it, and I think it was worth it for the university.
Yeah, Greg, talk, if you would, a little bit about what does go into it. Some people might think that Leslie has 2 pages that she submits, and then you go from there. But I mean, it's a 10, 11 month deal.
It started probably 18 months ago. We had to bid for the site, and it was a competitive bid process, and we were fortunate enough to get selected. Some of that was a little bit of its timing,
Sure.
who else was bidding, and from a geography standpoint. I'm not sure we would have made it, for example, this year, given the amount of competition that was in place. So I think going forward, we stand a good chance of getting to host again. But I don't see it being a regular thing. It would probably have to be every X number of years, and I'm not sure what X would be, but I'm very confident we'll get to host again. But a lot of work that goes into it when you're doing something like that, and I think as anyone involved can tell you, that just the amount of energy and effort to keep all the balls moving and juggled was well worth it, though, for everybody.
To host again, would you have to go through the exact same process?
Exactly. That's the
Wow.
way the rules are written right now. I think
Okay.
there's been some talk about going to the top 16 teams hosting, but I don't think I see that happening for at least the next 5 years. So as long as things are the way they are, we have a shot at hosting again. And by all accounts, the 4 teams that were here, the NCAA's perspective, the fans who have emailed and written to me and called. Again, it was a great event on all accounts.
So, as far as the facility itself was concerned,
Uh-huh.
you heard a lot of good things about that.
I heard great things about the facility. I heard great things about the community, our staff. There's always little things we can do better or change, but nothing substantive, and again, all positives from a Bowling Green standpoint.
The basketball season is over for both the men and the women. And let's talk a bit today, Greg, about your meetings with coaches. After each season, how soon does that happen? Do you meet with just the head coaches or assistant coaches involved, and what's the process?
Usually what I do, Dave, is sit down with each head coach and then the sport administrator for that sport. We have an associate AD that is really kind of a point person
Sure.
on each of our sports, so the 3 of us get together after each season for all 18 sports. And we usually just try to schedule it as soon as we can, within reason at the conclusion of a season, taking into account meetings, travel, things like the NCAA tournament. So I've certainly talked with Kurt and Lewis since the end of their seasons, but we haven't sat down and done the program review. Program review is usually about a 2-hour meeting where we just literally peel the onion away, every facet of the program, ranging from the marketing to the personnel to the recruiting and again, just everything in between. And the coaches have a template from which to work, and it's a good exercise, because you obviously have communication all throughout the year that is, some of it's formal, some of it's very informal, but this is a good template or menu to follow in which to evaluate the program.
One would think that the meetings should go reasonably well. Certainly on the women's side, they had a great year when you consider everybody they lost. And the guys' season wasn't quite what we had hoped, but very competitive and heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think directionally both programs, if you would have told me again, directionally where things wound up, I probably would have said roughly where it was. When I think of the two basketball seasons, I think first and foremost you probably think of the seniors. We had really a good group of seniors on both teams. On the women's team, Jess obviously has been a stalwart for some tremendous teams, and then Torian, Dee, Scott, really a staple of the men's side. If you would have told me going into the season that the guys were, I thought probably 9 to 10 wins was about right, being in the East Division for the MAC, top half finish and compete for postseason. All those things came to fruition. They probably left a couple of games, especially non-conference, on the table, and clearly the way they finished with the loss to Central Michigan in the MAC tournament, I think was disappointing. And Lewis and the team would be the first ones to tell you that. Yeah, the women, you're right. They, in a lot of ways, all season long, to some degree, you might say they overachieved. With the young roster and how that came together maybe faster than they expected. So it was impressive to watch, the coaches and how they managed that. But again, probably they would also be the first ones to tell you they were disappointed with how their season finished. So there's always things you can point at to improve. But at the end of the day, the women got to hang a banner, and that's incredible and impressive in its own right. But directionally, again, I would say that we had a lot of fun moments in basketball for both teams this year.
There were a lot of fun moments for the hockey team later on in the year.
Right.
But as Chris Bergeron was quick to note at the press conference the other day, let's not lose sight of the fact this was a last place team.
Yeah.
But so many good things happened late in the year. Your take on this hockey season and where they're headed?
I don't want to overuse the word, but again, directionally, I think what you saw in hockey this year was about what was expected. They made incremental steps, and in the fall, I've said this several times, but it's the absolute truth. When you went and watched this team play in October and November, you immediately saw that they were better. They were bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled. The problem in the fall was they weren't getting any results, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating for us. It was frustrating for the team, certainly for Chris. I know fans were getting frustrated. It was funny how quickly the arrows started flying again. They go away for Christmas break, and then they came back, and things started to click. By no means were they setting the world on fire, but you started to see results. You get a win here, you get a tie here. You were getting points most weekends. And then things really fell into place in the playoffs, and that was a fun run. So again, incremental steps. Chris is right. We're still a last place hockey team, and we've got to get better in a lot of respects. But when you see that roster and how many of them are coming back, you get a sense that things are headed in the right direction.
And considering where the program was, literally on the brink. I mean, things are
It took us more than 2 decades to get where we are. You're not going to fix that with one or two recruiting classes.
Last time we spoke, I don't think Temple had made their exit yet from the Mid-American Conference. They did shortly thereafter, and they went quickly.
Yes.
So talk about that process, and I know there are people who are wondering about, what was it, $6 million that they paid to the Mid-American Conference. Where's that money go? Does BG see any of that?
That's to be determined still. The Temple process did move rather quickly. It didn't catch anybody by surprise because there had been on again, off again conversations really for about 6 months about Temple and either Conference USA or whatever this new conference is going to be with Conference USA and Mountain West. And then the Big East, frankly, got a little desperate, and Temple was a good fit. I don't hold anything against them for moving. We've been a 13-team conference for as long as I've been here, so in football. So we're back to being a 13-team conference, and we're back in the East, at least for the short term. You're right that Temple is paying. I don't know when the money's actually going into the MAC bank account, but it's $6 million. And the presidents will discuss how that's going to be used. I'm guessing that, and this is just conjecture, that if you follow the pattern with what's happened in other conferences, some of that money will trickle down to the institutions. And I'm guessing some of it will stay in the conference office too. But at the end of the day, I'm guessing we'll get some here, and it's way too early to say how we might spend that, or where we might invested. But I'm guessing if we do anything, our biggest priorities are typically around the academic support of our student athletes and scholarship needs. So, but it's a little early to start talking about that. We've got plenty of other things in front of us.
The powers that be
Uh-huh.
in the conference obviously wanted there to be an equal number of teams, what with UMass coming in.
Right.
So does that mean the process will begin to look for somebody else, or is that way down the line?
That's probably a little too early too, Dave. You're right, 13 is just odd, in a lot of different ways. We make it work, but it's not great. Whether we stay at 13, look to go to 14, look to go bigger, all of those conversations took place over the last 2 years. So I guess we get to keep having them for the next year and see where it goes.
I don't believe, when we talked about the NCAA basketball tournament, we touched upon Ohio State and Baylor coming here. And
Right.
I think some of the fans would like for you to talk about that. You being on the committee,
Right.
How does all that work? Who decides who goes where, and how did Ohio State and Baylor wind up
Sure.
here?
We, absolutely, the 10 committee members decide where teams go. So, I clearly had a role in that. This was an unusually complex year, and I said that publicly a couple of times, in that because of the number of lower seeded teams that were hosting, we were ending up with higher seeded teams playing on their courts, and just didn't feel real comfortable with that. So ultimately, we had to do 3 different brackets, and we stepped back finally and said we want the number 1 seeds to be playing on neutral courts. That was important to us. So as soon as we lost in the MAC tournament, that actually kind of set the stage for us to get one of the number 1 seeded teams. So we pushed UConn to Bridgeport for geography purposes. Then we started talking about Baylor and Stanford and where to put them. And Bowling Green was one of those sites. Tallahassee was a possible option, but we felt Georgia was a good fit there. And then we were looking at Norfolk as another option. So ultimately, we were very likely to get a number 1 seed as soon as we lost. And then it came down to a conversation of Stanford or Baylor, which was the better fit. So that was one piece. The Ohio State piece was simply a geography switch, and I think it's fairly, I think it's very transparent what we do on the women's side. Unlike the men's side, we move teams up or down a seed line or along a seed line to help with geography, and you have that ability to move teams, and Ohio State was one of those schools that we just switched with somebody else to help both teams geographically.
So Baylor, I mean, that was just a great coup, for Baylor to be here. So it was a possibility they would be here or someplace else. So how did they wind up here? I mean, can I ask if you kind of said, hey, this would be great?
Well, again, it was going to be a neutral site.
Right.
So, either Stanford or Baylor, a number 1 seed was going to be a great
Okay,
one,
sure.
from that
I got you,
standpoint.
okay.
And then it just became a matter of matching geography and where teams could go.
Great, I think we've got it covered. We'll be back next month again. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dave.